Hey there. Welcome to Catalyst Energies. My name is Dee. Thank you for joining me. I'm so grateful that you're here. I am live again twice in one day. What a treat. What a treat. We're going to be doing we're going to be looking at the second lunar quarter astrology for the week here and our culminating full moon in Virgo. We're going to do a little report for all of this today because there are some interesting things happening this week, as if every week isn't incredibly interesting. So we will look at the chart and get a sense of what to expect this week. This full moon in Virgo is really about the full expression of who we are, right? Virgo is about the works, it's about the responsibility, but it's really about conditioning and disciplining ourselves to be the fullest, highest version of ourselves, a whole human being, so that when we engage in a shared experience, which is Libra in the seventh house, then we are at our best. And so that is why Virgo is so analytical, so detail oriented. It is getting down to the nitty gritty of who we are. In the sixth house, the Virgo house is about personal reconstruction. So this full moon really is a culminating point, just like every full moon, from that new moon intention setting, that seed point, and all of the work and growth that we have been experiencing since that full moon is going to culminate with the full moon, and we get to see the fruits of our labor so far and be willing to release what is not going to work for us. So let's backtrack just a little bit, because this report was really meant to come out on Friday with the first quarter square of the Pisces Sun, the Gemini Moon, and there was a square with Venus and Mars as well. And Mercury is now direct, just now starting to get momentum back forward. So we're still in this state of, we're still in this still point when it comes to our mind and communication and information and the movement of ideas. It is definitely moving direct, but it does take some time, even with Mercury, that is the fastest moving planet in our solar system. Even with Mercury, it does take some time to gain the momentum to move back in another direction. When we're dealing with 3D space and time, when these planets, they don't really actually go retrograde. They don't go backwards in their orbit. It's really just a matter of perspective, just like everything is a matter of perspective and our perception and the filter with which we interpret this information. So Mercury comes to a standstill. It then switches directions and starts moving forward, and it's just now starting to push forward. And Mercury actually will not exit its shadow period until the next new moon, which is the 13th of March. And that means it moves past the point where it went retrograde in the first place, and then we'll be in very new territory, along with a new moon just before the March equinox. March is going to be an incredible month. Mars is going to move into Gemini. We're getting a little ahead of ourselves here, but I think it's important to just give a sense of what to expect, because this time right now with this particular lunar cycle has really been about the individual developing themselves and getting prepared to stand in each of our own sovereign power. And like I said, with a full moon in Virgo, we're going to get a very intuitive and personal sense of what it is we each individually need to do to personally reconstruct ourselves, to get engaged with the actual work that it takes to be the highest version of ourselves. That means being on all levels, right? Our emotional state, our mental state and awareness, especially with Virgo, ruled by Mercury, and what we're doing on a daily basis, our works, the routines that we're engaged with, the thought processes that we allow to run their course that then impacts the emotional experiences that we have. And with the moon, that's going to be pretty primary, isn't it? And it's really about standing in our own power and having boundaries on an internal level internally, knowing where we end and others begin, while concurrently being able to offer ourselves to the collective experience, because that's really what is going to make the most impact. And that is about the sun in Pisces. Not an easy time of the year ever to have the sun in Pisces, because we find ourselves identifying with the collective unconscious. This is where addiction can really come to the forefront. This is where energy starts to really dissipate, because the boundaries are dissolving in terms of our identity. And so it's more important now than I think it may ever have been, that we are internally and psychically, intuitively, knowing where our personal boundaries are and who we are, and our ability to be radically self-reliant and autonomous in this process, so that we can give fully of ourselves at the same time. I have many people, especially right now, have been asking me in terms of their own work, how to not take on other people's energy. It's a pretty consistent theme that I get from my clients and other peers and colleagues that are doing the same type of work. And after 20 plus years as a social worker, professional body worker, and energy worker, reader, I will say that it is something that we all have to learn as we go along. And it really requires a daily practice of knowing your internal landscape, what it feels like, and be able to identify when you start taking on aspects, energy, whatever, that don't really resonate with you. And that is a whole course that I could develop. But in order to fully give of ourselves, which is what the Pisces archetype really asks us to do, it is the realm of the victim and the savior and the martyr, but it also is beautiful inspiration and forgiveness and compassion is where we really experience or what we really experience in the 12th house and Pisces. So in order to do that, we have to a certain extent, be able to have a visceral experience of what it's like to have certain events play out in our life, and to emotionally connect with other people, to energetically connect with other people. And empaths know this well. And it's really not so much about not taking it on, but not taking responsibility for it. That is a really distinct difference, because for people who do intuitive work, who are psychic, who are intuitive, who are energy healers, there's a certain amount that you are going to take on, not so much that you take responsibility for it, but you do take it into your body because you feel it, especially empaths. You feel what other people are feeling. And everybody has their way of experiencing this type of connection. I know for me, I have a very kinesthetic, and especially when I was doing body work all the time, I felt it in my body. People's pain, people's discomfort, where their issues were, would radiate into the same area of my body. So the difference is not taking responsibility for that, not taking it as your own. So this full moon is going to show us how we can be radically self-reliant, how we can be very firm in who we are, and do the work necessary to really condition and discipline ourselves in that way, while and having it be motivated and inspired by the quickening, right? In order to do something for the collective, to put our best foot forward, and to put everything we have into this spirit of cooperation and to do better. But that will highlight the expressionist part of ourselves. And that's why I picked Starry Night as the thumbnail for this video by Van Gogh, because Van Gogh really is synonymous with the expressionist movement. And this expressionism, from my understanding, I am not an art scholar by any stretch, but it's the idea that it's really, you're kind of pushing away the cultural standards and really going out on your own. And this is what we all need. And today's transmission, the Daily Medicine, I'll link that in at the end of this video if you're interested, was really about that and how we get our power as a collective when we all individually stand in our own power. So this full moon is going to be very much about that and what we actually need to do in real time, the responsibilities, the works, the things that we do on a regular basis that condition and train and discipline us to what? To let go of our passions in order to teach from a place of deep wisdom. That is the new moon that we are still working with. That was the intention of the new moon we're still working with. Because there's a lot coming this week. And there was a lot already happening last week. It was a cascade of events from Saturn square Uranus, to the sun moving into Pisces, to that first quarter square, Venus and square Mars at the same time. You know, the masculine and feminine aspects of ourselves internally in terms of our identity, and also in terms of our confidence and our will to action versus what we're holding and what is ours. Those things also squaring off with each other, and then Mercury moving direct. So there was a lot that happened last week that really, really pushed us into a place that we needed to really deeply consider a lot of things and maybe kind of check out for a little while, go deeper within, get kind of still and silent so that we know who we are, as opposed to are we being conditioned by the outside cultural forces to, are we being conditioned by those forces and thinking that it's us and that it's our own personality, it's our own expression? We really need to know the difference so that when it comes time to stand in our power, we're very clear about that. So let's look at the chart and kind of get an idea of what to expect for this coming week, okay? Because there's some stuff. All right, let's go here. All right, so it's still snowing where I'm at. It just doesn't want to stop. And I quite enjoy it. I get my exercise by shoveling snow. So, the rural life never gets boring, that's for sure. All right, so today is the 22nd. I went over a little bit about this in the Daily Medicine transmission that you can check out. But the moon is in Cancer, and it is at home in Cancer. And so this is where our psychic link can really be strengthened and, that it become a lot more sensitive. And that's because we get the benefit of some measure of structural soundness, right? The fourth house in Cancer, as we can see here, the fourth house, the Cancer is the Cancer house. The nadir is our root system, what structurally secures us to the world around us. And that allows us to be emotionally vulnerable. This is where our emotional sense of self or self-esteem really starts to be conditioned. This is where the character and the personality in the individuation process really starts to develop, is in the fourth house, because that nadir is what roots us to the world around us. Now, keep in mind, this root system is really important once we get to Virgo in the sixth house, because this is the time where the individual goes deeper within, okay, and really gets into the underlying surface, underneath the surface, deep into the ground, really pulling up the nutrients from underneath, getting into the shadow, getting into the darkness. This is the hermit. This Virgo is the hermit, and not so much that you're pushing it away. It's just the focus goes within, and you are working with the actual practices, whatever it is, your training, your practices, your exercises, whatever it is, to get to really nourish what you are growing, which is you as a whole person. So keep that in mind when we talk about Cancer, because it is the root system, and it's the roots that bring the nutrients and the water up from the soil. And during Virgo time, right, in a growing cycle, this is the time where the plant is, for instance, the plant is focusing on gestation. This is when the plant is, supporting the growth of the fruit as opposed to the vegetative growth or the blossoming of the flowers. at this point, the plant has already been pollinated and now the fruit is growing. And that's all of the action is happening under the surface. So you don't see it. It doesn't seem like things are happening. And that's when, sometimes people can get really, Virgo is very detail oriented and very analytical, and it's really about working with what's already there in order to support what's growing. So right now with the moon in Cancer, we are able to really sensitize and be sensitive to these intuitive messages and the psychic link, because there is some measure of containment and security to our emotional lives with the moon in Cancer. So she's very happy here, and is in a sextile to Uranus today, is a square to Chiron, and also is in a trine to the sun. So there is it's really like the more that we are trying to individually force things and not allow them to naturally unfold, or see that the bigger process, see it, that everything in the bigger process is in itself a holy or sacred process, we really stand to have some tragic results here. And so again, we want to allow the process to unfold naturally rather than trying to force anything. And so a moon in Cancer can let us really be still and be held, so that we can get a deeper understanding of who we are, at the same time that we are also utilizing that to see what's coming. With Uranus and Taurus is this constant disruption in our material world that allows us to, gives us practice like every step of the way in order to trust what is naturally unfolding. So when we move through the week, we have the moon in Cancer on the 23rd, is going to be in an opposition to Pluto, where, we are feeling very secure, we're very safe, very emotionally contained, and at the same time, Pluto is doing what Pluto does best, which is destroying and creating space for transformation. And when we're talking about Capricorn, with the larger institutional structures that we all rely on to give us institutional power, right? The corporations, the economy, the governments, these large collective institutions that make up the matrix of reality are being, since 2008, really, since Pluto came into Capricorn, just been, slowly but surely just destroying all of these aspects in order to make space for what's new, which is going to be when Pluto comes into Aquarius. And so we're just now starting the United States Pluto return. We have till about, 2030 really until it's over. And then a whole new world opens up. So that is for another report. But with the 23rd, there is that tug, right? Where we are feeling very safe and secure, and we're almost a little insulated here. A little insulated, a little luxurious in the late Cancer, really kind of wrapped around ourselves. And Pluto is providing that tension that's still pulling us to, well, as much as we are individually kind of pulled in and insulated into this space and really structurally sound here, we still have to contend with where Pluto is at. And we certainly will, because we're going to find here when the moon moves into Leo on the 24th, Mars comes into an exact trine with Pluto. Now, at this point, Mars is in, now we're in Pleiadian territory, number one. So Mars is in the Pleiades. Mars is not Pleiadian at all, okay? Mars is about action and willpower and courage and confidence and acting. It's about acting, whereas the Pleiadian starseed archetype essentially is much more about fluidity and heart chakra and connecting and, very much connecting to the natural world and the energy of the natural world. The Pleiadians are very connected to the Lemurians. It's about the natural technology, connecting with the earth, heart chakra, all of that stuff. So we're already starting to experience a little bit of dissonance here. So the other thing that is really striking is that this degree that Mars is going to be in a trine to Pluto is fixed star Algol. And Algol is the head of Medusa. It is about decapitation. It is about, it is actually, it was something that I wanted to report about on Friday because that's where the moon was, in a trine to Pluto. And so we already got a little bit of emotional connection to this trine with Algol. So Algol is actually a triple star. It's a trinary star. And it's referred to as Satan's head or Medusa's head. And if we remember the story about Medusa, right, she's got her hair is a bunch of snakes. And if you look into her eyes, you're turned to stone because she is that hideous. And she was created, right? She was one of three sisters, and she was raped by Neptune, in a goddess's temple, and the goddess was so upset about this that she punished Medusa and turned her into this hideous beast. And so she was eventually killed by decapitation by Perseus, and Perseus took the head, and this is how Perseus was able to destroy the Kraken, right? Because he showed the Kraken Medusa's head, and was still, the head, despite the fact that it was released from the body, was still able to turn anything that looked at it into stone. So that's the power of what Medusa and the fixed star Algol in astrology represents. So death by decapitation, strong Saturn and Mars connections here, mob violence. It is by far the most evil star in terms of fixed star astrology, sidereal astrology, okay? Now, we have Mars at this degree in a trine to Pluto, which is the Lord of Death. So we are looking at a very strong and strongly supported releasing of something very the head of evil just going, right? I mean, that's certainly what it is representing, is that Mars is the warrior, is going to come in and is just going to chop off the head of evil. And it's with a trine, it's absolutely got tons of support with Pluto and Capricorn, which is they're destroying all of these institutions and structures in order to pave the way for and create space for something new. So on the 24th, be prepared to engage on some level of this releasing point. Now, it's not all bad, right? Because when we release that shadow part of ourselves, again, we make space for something new to grow. And so there is such a healing potential here, but at the same time, it really is going to be preceded by somewhat of a tower type of moment. The decapitation and the idea that something or someone is going to lose their head on a figurative, literal, who knows. But Mars, as the warrior, is going to come in and actualize it, right? There's going to be some confidence and courageous action that's going to come through and essentially chop off the head of evil, whatever that means to us. And this is why it's important to understand what's in your chart, so you can see what area of your life that this is going to be in, especially with the trine to Pluto. It is going to, death is going to support this process. It is right here. And so on Friday, when we had this transit with the moon. Again, this was something that was stirring under the surface. It was something in our subconscious that we didn't really actively engage with. We couldn't really see, right? We're dealing with the moon. These are all internal and subconscious, intuitive things. Well, Mars is definitely anything but subtle, anything but subconscious. It is, on the surface and acting. And so by the 24th, we're going to see some action when it comes to this removal of the head, this decapitation. And this could be in a literal way too. I mean, not a literal way, and I mean, it could be, but it really could be the loss of our heads, right? Because of something that happens that really just triggers, just losing our heads, right? That's really what I keep getting, is the loss of our heads, the loss of perspective. But at the same time, through that loss, we are in fact creating space for something new. And with Pluto involved, it's very strong. It's a very strong transformation process, but it absolutely will be preceded by the separation of the head from the body, so to speak. Okay. Along with that, on that day, the moon will be moving into Leo and is going to square Uranus and is going to oppose Saturn. And again, this is another fixed star position of 7 to 8 degrees Leo. And it's in the constellation of Cancer, but it's at these two stars in the sky, Asclepius Australis and Borealis. And it's the asses, right? The donkeys. And so when we find that moon in Leo, so of course with Leo, we are talking about that sovereign, solar, creative, expressive part of ourselves, that regal and royal aspect. We're going to be wanting to express ourselves, express our true nature, express the fullness of who we are with the moon in Leo. And there could be some stubbornness here, especially with a square to Uranus and an opposition to Saturn in Aquarius as well. These aspects are about looking ahead and having faith in the cycles of nature. With Saturn, it's going to be about, again, looking at the mental archetypes of where we're going, but they're preformed. We're not quite there yet. And Saturn's been very setting that boundary that we are not there yet. We just have access to the mental archetypes that are coming, that give us an example of what to look for. And also with Uranus, again, in Taurus, we can expect the conditions and we can prepare for them. And this is the path of our awakening. So with the moon in this, at the same time with Mars and Pluto in this trine, and then the moon squaring Uranus in opposition into Saturn, there is a stubbornness here, but it's because there's a stubbornness because we want things to be a certain way, and we feel that they need to be a certain way. And in what we don't realize in that idealism of wanting things to change, right? We see that they're changing, we know that they're changing, and we want them to change. And what we're not really potentially identifying is, there is a period of chaos that absolutely is part of the undifferentiated form when we move from one position to another. And there will be chaos. Again, the losing of the head. It's such a violent position with Mars at Algol in a trine to Pluto. It's so violent and it's so definitive and it's so destructive, but it also is so cleansing, and it provides for, the hero in us to really have the tools necessary to finally vanquish that enemy, the Kraken. If you remember Clash of the Titans, the original, I'm like really dating myself here. But if you remember that movie, then you know exactly all of this story, because that was what this story is all about. So, but this moon in Leo, there's the stubbornness about it, of wanting to get from point A to point B without having to go through the chaos, is going to be really strong. And it is going to provide some serious tension within us when it comes to Saturn, that is really just crystallized where we're at, and we can't move past it until it's time to go. And also in a square, right? In a square with Uranus, it's like, well, we can see where we're going because we're tapped into the collective third eye here, but we aren't there yet because the natural cycle has to play out. We can't just, we can jump through time in other dimensions, but in terms of 3D, we still have to live it out. And this is going to cause so much frustration, and the chaos is going to be unavoidable at this point. So when we move to the 25th, this is where I feel like that we are going to hear the call, right? The sun is going to be in a sextile now to Uranus. The sun in Pisces, where we hear the call, right? We are answering the call to a certain extent. We are identifying ourselves with the evolutionary crisis that is everybody's issue when it comes to Pisces. It's inseparable from our own personal experience when we have a sun in Pisces. And if we can answer that call, then again, we're going to be able to, there's harmony, but it requires our participation with the sextile. It's about accepting what's happening and accepting our role in it as well. And so this will be kind of a relief point to a certain extent. And Venus is going to move into Pisces this day. Oh, wow, that's going to be so beautiful, because at this point we are really going to offer, Venus is so generous, right? And so sensitive. She has everything that she needs. This is the Empress. And so moving into Pisces, now it becomes a very feeling-based experience of gratitude and graciousness and beautiful inspiration. And so the 24th is going to be chaos. The 25th will be the opportunity to see the positive aspect of it, to answer the call and our own role within the crisis. And Venus moving into Pisces is this, we get to offer our value to the collective, not so much offering ourselves. That was when the sun moved into Pisces, but now with Venus, about our relationships and what's valuable to us. And she's so generous because she has so much to give. It is really going to be a much more visceral experience of giving of ourselves, giving and being very sensitive to our role within the collective and wanting to be there, right? And seeing the value in it as well. Bringing the crop, so to speak, to the market is going to be very material at this point. There's going to be, it's going to be quite the transition. And we still have the moon in Leo at this point. So we're really getting now to the point from the combustion period in the first half of Leo to the second half, which is all about the release. It's going to be the release of our energy at this point. Wow, that is quite a transition. Because then we come to the full moon on the 27th. And the moon, so let's back up a little bit, because we're going to come back and talk about the Draco. Again, the moon is on fixed star Thuban. I've talked about this in the other, I had a Sun Uranus transmission, Saturn square Uranus transmission. That was all about the Draco starseeds. And here we are, that this is fixed star Thuban, the tail of the dragon in the Draco constellation. This is the Draco starseed marking the conjunction right here at the moon. So again, it's really about learning who we are and radical self-reliance, and not allowing the cultural standards. This is the benefit of the Draco starseeds. And the Draco starseeds, if you don't know, this is a great time to get that starseed reading, because these are the individuals who can really step forward and be so strongly in who they are, if you are in that resonance without being pulled into the darkness, Wow. And that's the thing about Virgo. You're able to go into the darkness with the intention of coming back to the light and being part of the collective process, the move from the 6th to the 7th house. The Draco starseeds are able to do this really successfully because they have the ability to go into the darkness and come back out with everything they've learned in that space and learn how to manage their energy in real time. It's about managing your energy in real time. And there's a lot of emotional capacity here. There is a lot of analysis. There is some cunning and cleverness here. So this is going to be a big Draco moment. And for those who have gone into the shadow and have not used that as a means of disciplining themselves, conditioning themselves, personally reconstructing themselves to be of service, this is going to show that really, really brightly, right? Because that's the full moon. The sun is going to shine on the moon and give it full reflection. And it's going to show those who have put all of their effort into the collective process for a nefarious agenda, and those who have done so in preparation for being of service to the light. And this is going to be a culminating moment for all of us to see where we actually stand and to break away from the cultural control of our own individual sovereignty. This is going to be quite the moment. And this week, especially with Mars and Pluto, and then that square with the moon to Uranus, the sextile with the sun and Uranus, and then Venus moving into Pisces. It's really, there's these two major events that are going to show us what we're made of. They're going to show us what we're made of, and they're going to show us who we really are. And it's from this point then that we see what we have to release when it comes to letting go of our individual passions to teach from deep wisdom. This is incredible. But this Draco starseed is right here on this moon. We're going to see everything for what it truly is. Now, what else is here? It's going to trine Uranus as well. So it's also going to make this transition a lot easier and a lot more fluid to accept, I guess would be the best way, because it's an earth trine. So not so much fluid necessarily, but receptive and holding space and very grounded, even though Uranus is, Uranus. If we can connect to the collective third eye that Uranus represents, then we are able to see into the future, into the past. We can move ourselves, at least mentally, out of the confines of time and space so that we can see where we're going, and then at the same time be directly connected to the actual process unfolding. This will make it a lot easier. This trine right here at this full moon, almost exactly at the time of the full moon, will make it. I don't want to say it'll make it easier, but if you are in a receptive mode, which we really need to be, it'll certainly help. And this is happening at 3:15 to 3:15 a.m. on the 27th Eastern Standard Time. So you're looking at midnight right on Friday to Saturday Pacific Standard Time. So that is it in a nutshell, guys. That is the full moon, the second lunar quarter. We have a lot. There's some big shifting that's about to happen, and everything leading up to it at this point has been setting the stage for us to know the difference between who we are and everybody else, but also be open to the change and be receptive to other people's experiences, and to be able to exercise some compassion and some forgiveness. That is what Pisces really is. And Neptune and Sun and Venus are now all in Pisces. So we are dissolving to a certain extent into the collective unconscious, and we have to just, we're floating out on that surfboard now out in the ocean, or some of us are treading water for dear life here, and some people are going to drown. So that's something to consider as we move through this time, but this is going to be quite the week. So if you are interested in a reading, you can go to catalystenergies.net. That is in the description box below. Come join us on Telegram if you feel so called to. You can also go to Facebook. Both of those places so far are getting all of the social media connections in terms of content and other fun things. But Telegram is super fun, and because we can actually chat in a way that Facebook doesn't actually allow very easily. So, and if you could subscribe to this channel, if you found this helpful, hit that like button. If you share this information, even doing something that simple, it really helps get it out to a larger audience so that more people who would also find this helpful can find it, because especially on YouTube, BitChute is getting way more traction. So I would recommend trying there, just because I feel like more people are getting access to it as opposed to YouTube. I've heard that content creators just in general are not really getting a lot of exposure through YouTube right now. So, and that's that. So you guys have a great week. I will check in when it gets closer to the full moon, and we'll talk about the last half of this lunar cycle that will absolutely have Mars coming into Gemini. It's oh boy, we're gonna have a really fiery, some swift, courageous movement when it comes to information, communication, and expressing ourselves. I think we are really getting ready to express ourselves very passionately and very courageously. And right now, this whole lunar cycle is setting the stage so that we can be very grounded and not be, especially this full moon, not knowing the difference between ourselves and what we really feel, how we really feel, who we really are, and if we are being conditioned and molded by cultural standards. It's important to know the difference. And with all this Pisces energy, it gets a little bit more difficult to tell. And so it actually is incredible training for us. So take care, you guys. Thank you so much for being here. Have a great week. If you subscribe, you'll see me on the Daily Medicine tomorrow for the transmission. Take care.